He's holding a mirror to the face of those who thought that Revdi culture could see political parties through. The Congress has led this, other parties co-opting and following. Now Revanth Reddy says he has no money for capital expenditure, no money for infrastructure development projects. Is the Revdi roost now coming back to bite the Congress? And is there a way forward? Can we pull back from this Revdi culture, or is it already too late? Joining us for a Congress perspective, I have Mohan Kumaramanglam, National Spokesperson of the Congress Party. With us on this broadcast from the BJP is Tuhin Sinha. Since the BRS is being blamed by Revanth Reddy for the level of public debt in Telangana, for a BRS perspective, I have Krishank Mane, and somebody who actually understands a thing or two about government figures and government revenue and deficit is S.C. Garg, former Finance Secretary in the Government of India. So thank you. I want to go across to Mohan Kumaramanglam. Mr. Kumaramanglam, now for the Telangana Chief Minister to turn around and say that he doesn't even have 500 crore rupees for capital expenditure and no money to spend on infrastructure projects in Telangana just seems like a very massive cop-out. You promised the people of the state that there would be multiple guarantees that will be delivered. You're being unable to deliver on some of them you delivered, some of them you're unable to. And now you're basically saying, we have no money, we can't build new ports, we can't build new roads, we can't build new bridges, we can't build new public infrastructure because we have no money.
Rahul, I wouldn't characterize some of the things in the manner in which you have. To begin with, I wouldn't say that Mr. Revanth Reddy said anything against the guarantees or that blamed the guarantees for not having enough funds to invest in infrastructure. In fact, he went out of his way to prove his work. He went out of his way to say that it was the 7-odd lakh crores of debt left behind by the BRS, and servicing that debt is the reason why he's having a cash crunch in the government right now. Now, as far as what you characterize as a freebie versus what you see as justified welfare, that also is a question that needs to be discussed. If you look at lakhs of crores that Government of India lost in the corporate tax cut since 2019, would you characterize those
No, but
as
that's
freebies?
not the point. That's not the debate we are having here. Your party made some promises.
Let me finish.
Just 1 second, because you're going off on a different tangent. I'm just trying to draw you to the debate, sir.
Rahul, did you hear Mr. Revanth Reddy say that he wasn't going to implement the guarantee? In fact, I heard him reaffirm that he was going to implement the guarantees and he's looking for places in the state's balance sheet to make sure.
He said he has no money for public infrastructure projects.
No. Hold on. He said he does not have enough money for capital expenditure. I heard that. And that's what I'm trying to tell you is that the guarantees are investment in human capital. That's also capital. It's all a matter of perspective. Rahul, we're not the first country to implement cash transfers. They've been used the world over to target billions of people and have effectively lifted people out of poverty, have got behavioral changes in certain ways like keeping children in school. Brazil, Mexico, Kenya, Ghana are some of the countries I can tell you. The questions we need to ask is, how do we fund these things? Is it okay for states which have very, very meager finances to be able to fund these things on their own? And it's not only Congress states. Maharashtra, as you know, promised in the election and then now has backed down from their scheme. They've reduced the amount that they're actually giving in cash transfer. Madhya Pradesh also did not have much of an infrastructure investment in budget. So we have multiple states recognizing that we need to give cash transfers to the poor to alleviate poverty, to ensure that we can do some sort of demand stimulation at the base.
I think Mohan Kumaramanglam, as is quite
finances are strained.
No, as is quite understandable, you're trying to downplay the extent of the challenge that the state of Telangana faces because your chief minister has pretty much come on public forum and said he has no money for capital expenditure because his state's finances are stretched. He's also said he has no money to pay dearness allowance to government employees and to pay their salaries. That's the extent, and you're giving a very generic, long-winding answer to a very specific problem. The point is, it is the job of the incumbent state to run the finances. You may have inherited what you did, but ultimately you will balance the books in a way that you're able to ensure that DA, salary, public welfare and infrastructure developments all happen without saying we don't have money to be able to do this, Mr. Kumaramanglam.
Sure, Rahul, and that's exactly what he's saying when he's saying that he might have to delay some salaries, when he's saying that don't ask for an increase in DA this time, like I give you one every year to the government employees. So he's making those calls. And those are the calls every state is going to have to make now in order to ensure there's some demand stimulation. I'm stretching the argument to go beyond that and say that the center, while giving free grains, seem to believe that it's abdicated their responsibility to the poor in this country. That might not be enough. For example, the most successful cash transfer program in the world, which was from Brazil, was heavily funded almost entirely by the federal government there. So those are the questions that we need to ask. And that's why Mr. Revanth Reddy said in your conclave that there is a conversation that we need to have with everybody in the room about this. It wasn't about competitive politics. It was about, if this is the need for the hour, how are we going to get to a place where state and center together can come together to fund?
But that's really not a plausible argument, because before you say you'll spend
That would be a
200
perspective,
rupees.
Rahul. That would be your perspective.
No, sure. I'm engaging in a debate with you to say that you're saying, okay, I'll spend 500 rupees, but you have only 100 rupees. Before you make the promise as a politician going to people asking for votes that you'll spend 500, you surely need to see how much do you have in your wallet. And you won't say you'll spend 500 when you have 100 and later say, oh, I can give you this 100, but now I can't build roads because I have no money for capital expenditure. Modi ji, please help me. And that's clearly what we're seeing happen. Just 1 second, stay with me.
I don't think...
I'll allow you to make a quick point and then we'll move forward. Yes, go on.
I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but I'm saying that every state, including Madhya Pradesh as well, which had this sort of welfare schemes, and I'm going to stick with calling it welfare and not freebies, has had to reduce some portion of expenditure.
So let me put that question to Tuhin Sena. Here's the point. There was a time when Prime Minister Modi very aggressively attacked the Revdi culture. That's when the BJP would have claimed that it has a moral high ground on the issue of freebies. However, Madhya Pradesh, Haryana, Delhi, Maharashtra have shown that BJP is doing pretty much the same thing. Now we're already seeing from Maharashtra attempts to pull back on some of the promises. When I was in Mumbai recently, there was talk of some other schemes being curtailed to be able to make funds available for the new schemes that were announced in the elections. So frankly, the BJP is not much better than the Congress on this score, and therefore if you stuck to the Prime Minister's conviction on Revdis and freebies, you would have said, I told you so. The problem is you buckled under populist pressure and now you have no moral high ground to stand on.
Well, good evening, Rahul. Good evening, everybody. It would be very unfair to compare the BJP states with the Indy Alliance states, because fiscal profligacy, anarchy and recklessness have become synonymous with all, Indy Alliance state governments. So when Telangana CM says he doesn't have money to fund basic schemes or for infrastructure development, this is the fourth state where you have heard the CM say that, Karnataka, Punjab and Himachal being the other three states. And if you look at the debt to GDP ratio of Punjab, it stands at 47%, of Himachal it stands at 38%, so the debt of Telangana stands at way above 7 lakh crore. On the other hand, when you talk about BJP government, I completely agree that freebie was not the BJP culture. We took a detour in the last couple of years because at the end of the day, to be very honest with you, you need to win election to make the necessary changes, to bring about the necessary changes in the country, which we are committed to, which somebody like a Rahul Gandhi will never understand, who's got used to losing elections after elections, and now, he promises something which he cannot deliver. When it comes to Karnataka, it's about priorities. Let me put it this way, it's more about priorities. At a time when Karnataka's borrowings for the first quarter of 2025 between January and March is estimated to be around 40,000 crore, which is roughly 3,500 crore every week. What is the priority of the Karnataka government? 4% reservation, 4% contractors reservation for Muslims, 1,000 crores for Muslim colony development, CM. So I think it's about priorities. If in Maharashtra we have curtailed certain schemes, I think it is very timely. We are committed to fulfilling our promises, but we have taken a detour to ensure that fiscal discipline and fiscal prudence is maintained, which, unfortunately, the opposition states are incapable of comprehending.
Now, Krishank Mane, essentially, the only plausible fig leaf of an explanation that Revanth Reddy has is that the BRS government misled the public about the state of public finances in Telangana. That the books showed that the level of public debt in the state was about 3.5 lakh crores. When he came to power, he discovered it's actually closer to 7.5 lakh crores, and therefore, because he has to pay back more than double the debt that he imagined he'd have to pay back, which is why he's struggling to find money for infrastructure and struggling to find money to live up to some of the promises he made in terms of guarantees. How do you explain that, Krishank Mane?
Rahul, one, it's an excuse and an escape route. Number one, any state, any debt or loan they raise, definitely are answerable to institutions like Reserve Bank of India or the Comptroller Auditor General. You cannot hide the debts and the numbers. And according to that, debts, he has spoken on Rajdeep's show only that it was 3.5 lakh crore. But more than this, it actually reminded me, Rahul, the 29th November 2023 show where you and Nagarjuna, your colleague, actually interviewed in a conclave to Revanth Reddy and specifically asked that how will the Congress government ensure the implementation of these guarantees with numbers, for which Mr. Revanth Reddy said that Telangana's revenue is there, we can definitely give the salaries, we can ensure the implementation of these guarantees. So now how suddenly the learned then parliamentarian, today chief minister, and all his colleagues were cabinet ministers earlier too, do not have the basic knowledge of the finances. And number one, in just 15 months. Now, if Telangana government for 10 years, KCR's government has done 3.5 lakh crore, let me quote Eco-Wrap report of the State Bank of India. They have quoted Telangana as the second top state, sharing with Madhya Pradesh for capex expenditure, for capital expenditure. Telangana was known for it, for infrastructure. But in just these 15 months, where has your 1,58,041 crore loans gone? Where have you spent them? Because you say loan waiver. The chief minister says 21,000 crores were spent. The finance minister says only 8,000 crores actually reached to the farmers. In the entire year of 2024, the Raitu Bandhu, which was changed into Raitu Bharosa 2024, Congress government did not give it. Even now, it is not completely delivered. Your promises are gone for a toss, be it 2,000 rupees pension raised to 4,000. That has not happened. Women 2,500 has not happened. Why shouldn't we question that this is same replica of Himachal Pradesh?
No, sure.
Karnataka?
The fact is that the loudest warning noises have come from Himachal Pradesh, Karnataka and Telangana, and all happen to be Congress-ruled states. I want to go across to Subhash Garg, who'd be delighted that this debate is finally taking place and this Revdi culture is coming back to hit these parties. But do you think that now that, and I saw Mohan Kumaramangalam try and downplay the seriousness of the threat, saying, oh, we'll find some way of pushing through. But in what we heard from Revanth Reddy, it cannot get more desperate than this. He says that he has no money to spend on infrastructure, he has no money to pay salaries, he has no money for dearness allowances because it's all going in the money that he's already committed to paying. Do you think this will lead to a pullback, or do you think nahi hone wala, it will continue like this and they'll continue to keep adding up to the debt in these states?
See, Rahul, what is going on in the country for last couple of years is that the states remain constrained in their total expenditures as they have been for last many years, and their fiscal position overall has not worsened. But the composition of expenditure is undergoing massive change after the preference of almost every political party for giving these direct benefits instead of spending on the capex or the other public expenditure. That is what is going on in the country. Let me just explain. Telangana is in the focus today. And I must say that Mr. Revanth Reddy has been honest in admitting and saying what the state of the finances is. It is the Revdi culture which you are debating. The Revdi culture in the recent times actually started with Telangana again when the Raitu Bandhu scheme was brought in 2018. But that was not only one state, it was followed by Odisha. And the government of India came up with the biggest Revdi of that time, the PM Kisan Yojana, which promised 6,000 rupees to every 10 crore farmer.
No, can I pause you to ask this question? Revanth Reddy, in that interview we did at the conclave, says, I thought that the level of public debt in the state of Telangana was 3.5 lakh crores. It's actually 7.5 lakh crores. Can 3 lakh crore rupees of public debt be kept hidden from the state's books, or is that just a very lame excuse from a chief minister under fire?
See, I don't know why did he use these numbers, because these numbers are not actual numbers reported by the Reserve Bank of India also. Incidentally, Telangana has been, despite its expenditure on Raitu Bandhu and others, and also on capex, especially in the irrigation side, the fiscal deficit to GDP, which is the measure which we take as the constraint which the state is facing about its finances. No state is ever bankrupt. It is the constraint of total available resources which need to be taken into account. And on this measure, in last 5 to 6 years, ever from 2018, except 2021, Telangana has never exceeded 3% to GDP ratio, which is what we consider prudent, irrespective of the government in power.
No, but you're saying that instead of spending on productive resources with a high multiplier for growth, they're now spending more on wasteful means with less money, as the chief minister himself says, for spending on capital expenditure.
He never
No,
said that.
Rahul, this also need to be debated in a dispassionate way.
Okay, go on.
The Telangana has been spending enormous amount on irrigation expenditure over the last 20 years.
Sure.
Is that more productive than paying to the farmers the Raitu Bandhu Yojana? I think that need to be debated, discussed. If you take it that way, so irrigation benefits, definitely it benefits in raising the agriculture productivity. But if you actually analyze that how much of the expenditure goes into raising productivity of a smaller amount of hectareage, and the per hectare cost which you incur, which you can take as a proxy for the per farmer benefit cost, and what the Raitu Bandhu provided for the farmers into much larger scale.
No, so let me ask you the question differently. We've seen three very loud voices of financial display from Sukhu in Himachal Pradesh, Siddaramaiah and Shivkumar in Karnataka, and from Chief Minister Revanth Reddy in Telangana. Are Congress states doing worse in your view, or do you think that all states are going down the same financial slope and it's equally dangerous everywhere?
This is again a very different kind of situation. There are some states like Punjab, for example, Kerala, for example, which have been for last 30 years fiscally stressed for the policies which they adopted elsewhere. For example, Punjab suffered because of that free power.
Correct.
And also the security related issues. So Punjab has been fiscally stressed for ages now. It's not the new one.
About Karnataka, Telangana and Himachal.
Let us take Karnataka, let us take Tamil Nadu, let us take Telangana for that matter, and Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh was an opposition state till some time. Andhra Pradesh in last 10 years has been far more fiscally imprudent, badly managed. Both Mr. Chandrababu Naidu in its last term overspent. It went beyond spending what was available. It borrowed outside the government, which actually the government of India at one point of time had to come down upon, because you are borrowing outside the budget, off budget, and burdening the state. I have been working for the Andhra Pradesh for some time. In 2021, I saw the kind of stress which it was facing.
Now, let me pause you to basically question Tuhin Sinha, because what's very clear from Subhash Garg, and he understands state finances much better than anybody else, that this is not a Congress alone problem. Yes, the problem may be acute in Karnataka, Telangana, and Himachal Pradesh, but this is a problem in all manner of states, and they're all going down the same financial trajectory, and which is very dangerous for this country.
You want me to respond on that?
No, I want Tuhin
Well,
Sinha of the
I
BJP
tend
to
to
respond.
agree with you, Rahul, because I tend to agree with you, because if you look at the budgets, union budgets of the Modi government over the last 11 years, just in the worst of situations, there has been unparalleled emphasis on keeping the overall fiscal deficit at manageable levels, and in fact at very moderate levels. So for a government which has put so much emphasis on fiscal prudence, for it to allow this kind of fiscal profligacy which the country has seen in different states in the last 4 years or so was certainly not something which we would have liked. But like I said, my assessment is that in the next 2 years, this entire freebie culture will end. Aam Aadmi Party had been one of the biggest contributor to it with what they did in Delhi and then what they promised in Punjab, which they could not fulfill, because till date, the promise of Mahila Samman Yojana in Punjab, which they made 3 years ago, has not been fulfilled. So I believe with the decimation of Aam Aadmi Party, much of the freebie culture is anyway, and with what the Congress states are witnessing, they would realize that they have bitten more than they could chew. So it is anyway going to be on its way out. But, like
it's a question, Mohan Kumar Mangalam, of mindset. The Prime Minister's mindset was, Revdis are bad, we need to pull back. He came under pressure, which is how in states like Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, they doled out some schemes which the Prime Minister, just in terms of his fiscal instinct, was opposed to. However, Rahul Gandhi's instinct is khatakhat. 10,000 rupees, 15,000, abhi aayega transfer. It is the messaging from the top, which is the messaging which percolates to the ground. It is this khatakhat culture which is coming back to bite political parties now.
Coming back to bite Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh as well, if that's what you want to call it. Now, let me just respond to Tuhin Sinha's wild allegations about fiscal deficits in Congress-run states. The highest running fiscal deficit states are Andhra Pradesh, Punjab, Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra. And by the way, Tamil Nadu is one of the most developed states and is growing at most twice probably what the rest of the country is. So even if you look at deficit as a percentage of GDP, Andhra Pradesh and Punjab top the list in terms of running deficits. So please don't say that this is a Congress state only problem. Rahul, as far as you're concerned with trying to determine whether Mr. Rahul Gandhi's frame of mind or Mr. Modi's frame of mind is better for the country, I won't even go down that path. I'll just say that your basic assumption, which is that the money multiplier for infrastructure investment is greater and will help us propel the economy forward, has failed in the last 10 years. This central government has made huge investments in infrastructure and it has not resulted in...
You need to tell that to Revanth Reddy, who's telling this country he doesn't have money for public infrastructure. It's not about which... Sir, some of this... Sir, there are global economic studies which determine very clearly what spending by the government has the highest multiplier on growth. That there are global studies for that.
Rahul,
it's not something...
Rahul, I know, I'm not denying the fact that that's what conventional wisdom says. But I'm also saying what you're continuing to assert is in the face of mounting evidence to the contrary, which is that despite the 10 years, we've not had increase in private investment. GFCF has not gone up. We have not had increase in consumption. In fact, it is a reduction in consumption today, which you can ask anybody in the FMCG business, that is worrying everybody. If it wasn't the case, the Prime Minister or the government of India would not come out with a massive tax cut. And as I'm sure you're aware, is rationalizing GST so that indirect taxation burden as well is reduced. So everybody today in India, thankfully, is on the same page when we say that consumption requires a demand stimulus.
Krishank Pane, we are hearing from the Congress, they're looking to double down and upturn economic theory, saying that they can spend their way out of this problem by putting more cash in the hands of voters in the hope that it is politically beneficial and also beneficial for the economy. Krishank Pane.
Rahul, there's a larger threat, Rahul. If the Chief Minister, the Supreme of the state himself, shows the dark side of Telangana, of his own state, who will come and invest? Who will come and do business? If you project wrong figures just to gain some political points, double up figures which are not mentioned by the Reserve Bank of India, then definitely Telangana will be shown in a bad light. Number one. Number two, earlier when he was questioned about these guarantees implementation, Chief Minister Revanth Reddy said that if 1 month I hold my stomach from eating, from doing any corruption, then we can definitely deliver this. Then why haven't you delivered this? And one more point. He also mentioned that the government of India, because there is politics with economics too. He said that because KCR did not have good terms with the government of India, now Mr. Revanth Reddy will have good terms with Narendra Modi ji, the Bada Bhai. He can get 50,000 crore annually is what he promised. So did the Congress get that?
Tuhin Sinha, I'm running out of time. Will the BJP lead an all-party meeting, bring everyone together, do what Revanth Reddy is saying? There must be a national public debate and try and pull back. I think enough states have burnt their hands. If they actually get together outside of the lens of the camera, if calm heads sit and say, okay, how do we move forward, there may be a willingness to move forward and actually pull back on some of this excessive spending.
Rahul, like I said, yes, there should be a national debate, and a national debate is any which way happening. But what worries me essentially is the attitude of a state government like Karnataka even now. I think journalists and media should question the 1,000 crore at this point for the CM Muslim Colony Development Fund. What is the need for that when you are in such a precarious situation that you've had to embezzle 14,000 crore out of the 39,000 crore allotted for the SC/ST funds in the state? When your Himachal Bhavan had to be mortgaged to pay the debts of the state government in Himachal. In that situation also, you cannot grow out of your petty vote bank politics. I think once they grow out of it, we are most happy to engage with them.
Pull
we are
back?
most happy to have a
now that everyone's admitting this is a problem across the political spectrum, will you now hope that there will be a pullback on some of this expenditure?
See, Rahul, I think I must get one statement right. BJP spokesman said the BJP government at the center has been running a very prudent fiscal deficit regime. It's so bizarre that in last 4 years, ever since 2021, the highest fiscal deficits which have been run in the history of this country is by this government. And the 3% fiscal deficit rule which was there in the law has been violated so badly. So if you talk about the prudence elsewhere, when you're running such large fiscal deficit yourself, I think that doesn't gel well. But to come to your question, I think this is the central question. What is the right kind of fiscal expenditures of these states as well as the center? Should you invest on capex? Should you invest on the direct benefit programs which reaches to the people directly, or should you spend on the public goods and services? I think that is the central debate. This one guy or this guy does badly and I do better, I think that is not going to take anywhere.
Okay, I'm out of time. I think it's very important that at least politicians in power, chief ministers like Revanth Reddy, are being candid enough very early on in their term to say, hey, we have a massive crisis. It may not have come across in some of what we heard from the politicians on this panel, but the chief minister has publicly said the state is in a financial mess, he needs help. And this only can happen if all states start pulling back, so it then becomes the accepted norm that beyond a point, freebies are not okay. Of course, you must do public welfare and expenditure, but as Subhash Garg says, determine what is acceptable to what limit, give states some maneuverability in terms of where they wish to spend, but it cannot be reckless as it has been in the past few election cycles. I want to thank our guests for joining us. We'll keep tracking this very closely.